My ex-husband just filed a lawsuit to take away 100% of my custody rights, simply because I refused to let my children serve as props at his mistress's birthday party on a yacht. I am holding the court summons in my hands, and the paper is wet with my tears because I know exactly what this is. This is not about parenting. This is about a millionaire punishing me for having a spine. He has the high-priced legal team, the private investigators, and the new trophy wife, Vanessa, who smears my name online while treating my children like accessories for her photo shoot. I have $40 in my bank account and a terrifying realization that they are trying to erase me completely. They have accused me of being mentally unstable. They have cut off my financial support, and they have turned the entire world against me, all to secure an inheritance that requires a picture-perfect family. Does a bank balance really determine who loves a child more? How do I fight a monster who can purchase the truth while I am selling my grandmother's ring just to buy bread? I feel like I am drowning in plain sight while everyone applauds the people pushing me under. Please, tell me, what would you do if the person who promised to protect you was the one destroying your life? My name is Elizabeth Bennett. I am 25 years old. By trade, I am a waitress at a 24-hour diner called Jerry's Stop on the gritty outskirts of Chicago, Illinois. By circumstance, I am a single mother raising 2 children, Leo, who is 6, and Mia, who is 4. We live in a 3rd-floor walk-up apartment in a neighborhood where the streetlights only work half the time, and the sound of police sirens is our nightly lullaby. This is my reality. I am the woman who counts pennies at the grocery store checkout. I am the woman who smiles when customers leave a $2 tip on a $50 bill because I cannot afford to be angry. It was a Friday evening. The kind of humid mid-July night that makes your skin feel sticky the moment you step out of the shower. The air in our small apartment was thick and smelled faintly of the neighbor's burnt popcorn. I was on the living room floor, surrounded by a chaotic pile of sleeping bags, flashlights, and a cooler I had borrowed from a coworker. This weekend was supposed to be our escape. I had worked double shifts for 3 weeks straight, trading my sleep and my sanity for overtime pay, just so I could afford to take Leo and Mia to a state park campground 3 hours north. It was not a trip to Disneyland. It was not a flight to Europe. It was a patch of dirt near a lake, a tent I had bought secondhand from a thrift store, and a bag of marshmallows. But to me, it felt like freedom. To my children, it was an adventure. I looked at the tent spread out on the worn carpet. There was a tear near the zipper that I had patched with silver duct tape. I ran my fingers over the rough texture of the tape. Inner monologue. Look at this sad little pile of dreams. Duct tape and clearance aisle granola bars. But it is ours. For 48 hours. I do not have to be Elizabeth the waitress or Elizabeth the struggling single mom. I can just be mom. No David. No lawyers. No judgment. Leo ran into the room, holding up a plastic fishing rod that looked like it would snap if it actually caught anything larger than a minnow. He was grinning, that gap-toothed smile that always made my chest ache with how much I loved him. Mom, do you think we will see a bear? He asked, his eyes wide with a mixture of terror and excitement. I laughed, reaching out to ruffle his hair. No bears, Leo. Just squirrels and maybe a very grumpy raccoon if we leave the marshmallows out. Mia was busy trying to shove her favorite stuffed rabbit into a backpack that was already full of socks. The room was filled with their noise, their energy. For the first time in months, the crushing weight on my shoulders felt a little lighter. I allowed myself to breathe, I allowed myself to believe that maybe, just maybe, the universe was going to give me one weekend of peace. That was my mistake. I should have known better. In my life, peace is just the eye of the storm. My phone buzzed on the kitchen counter. It was not a text message chime. It was the specific, default tone I had assigned to my email notifications. A sharp, insistent ping. I froze it. My stomach did a slow, sickening flip. It was 7 in the evening on a Friday. No one emails you at 7 on a Friday with good news. It is either a bill collector or him. I walked to the counter, my movements slow, as if delaying looking at the screen would somehow change what was on it. I picked up the phone. The screen lit up, harsh and bright in the dim kitchen. From David Sterling. Subject: urgent. Change of schedule. Important family event. My hands started to tremble. Just a little. A fine tremor that I hid by gripping the phone tighter. Inner monologue. Here we go. The puppet master pulls the strings. He could have texted. He could have called. But no. David likes emails. Emails are admissible in court. Emails are paper trails. He is not talking to me. He is writing for a judge he has not even met yet. I opened the email. The formatting was impeccable. As always, no tipos. Formal greeting. Xiao Yu Jing Hao Ling. 2 hashes greater than Elizabeth. I hope this email finds you well. I am writing to inform you of a necessary adjustment to the visitation schedule for this coming weekend. My wife, Vanessa, is celebrating her birthday, and we have organized a gathering on the family yacht. It is going to be a significant event. More importantly, my grandfather has expressed a strong desire to see the children. As you know, his health is declining, and he rarely makes requests. He specifically asked for a complete family photo. I am sure you agree that depriving a great-grandfather of this simple joy and the children of this bonding experience would be detrimental to their emotional well-being. We will pick Leo and Mia up tomorrow morning at 8. I have already instructed my lawyer to draft a makeup time agreement for you for next month, so you do not feel you are losing hours. Please have them dressed appropriately. White linens if possible. Best regards. Xiao Yu Jing Hao Ling. Dva, David. I read the email twice, then a third time. Appropriate dress. White linens. Makeup time next month. He knew. He had to know. I had told him about the camping trip 2 weeks ago to ensure there would be no conflicts. I had sent him the dates. I had sent him the location in case of emergency. He had ignored that email. And now, 12 hours before we were supposed to leave, he was dropping this bomb. Inner monologue. You calculated son of a bitch. You waited. You watched me pick up those extra shifts. You let me get their hopes up, and now you play the grandfather card? Since when does old man Sterling care about my children? He called Leo a distraction at the christening. He looked at Mia like she was a stain on the carpet. And then there was Vanessa, a birthday party on a yacht. I could picture it clearly. Champagne towers, influencers taking selfies in the golden hour light. My children, dressed in white linens I did not own and could not afford, standing there like props to prove that Vanessa was the perfect, inclusive stepmother. I looked back at the living room. Leo was casting his plastic line onto the sofa. Mia was humming a song. If I said no, I was the bitter ex-wife keeping the children from their dying great-grandfather. If I said yes, I crushed my children's hearts and wasted 3 weeks of blood and sweat. But there was something else, a small, nagging detail in the text that made the hair on the back of my neck stand up. Complete family photo. David's family was obsessed with image. Yes, but they were also obsessed with lineage and purity. They had spent the last 3 years treating me and the kids like invisible embarrassments. Why the sudden need to parade them around on a yacht? Why did the grandfather, a man who once told David he was a fool for marrying a waitress, I suddenly want a photo? It felt wrong. It felt like a trap disguised as an olive branch. I typed a reply, my fingers shaking so hard I hit the wrong keys. I deleted it. I took a breath. I had to be calm. I had to be the reasonable one. That is what the parenting book said. That is what the court mediator said. Do not react. Respond. Inner monologue. They want you to scream. Liz. They want you to type in all caps so they can print it out and say, look, Your Honor, she is unstable. Swallow the bile. Swallow the rage. Be the gray rock. I set the phone down, face down, on the counter. The buzzing of the refrigerator seemed deafening in the sudden silence. The camping gear on the floor no longer looked like an adventure. It looked like a pile of garbage waiting to be thrown away. The war had not started with a shout or a gunshot. It started with a polite email on a humid Friday night, demanding white linens. I stared at the blinking cursor on my phone screen. My thumb hovered over the send button. The email I had drafted was short. It was factual. I had stripped away every adjective, every ounce of emotion, leaving only the cold, a hard skeleton of our legal agreement. I stated clearly that I had provided notice of our trip 20 days ago. As required by our custody arrangement, I reminded him that this was my designated weekend. I politely declined his request to switch days. I pressed send. The moment the message swooshed away, the air in the kitchen seemed to grow heavier. I put the phone down on the cracked laminate counter and gripped the edge of the sink. My knuckles turned white. I closed my eyes and listened to the sounds of my children in the next room. Leo was making explosion noises with his mouth. Mia was giggling. They were happy. They were oblivious. Inner monologue. Please let that be the end of it. Please let him just read it, sigh in that arrogant way of his, and go back to drinking scotch in his study. Do not call me. Do not make this a thing. Just let us have the dirt and the trees and the cheap hot dogs. 2 minutes passed. The silence stretched out, thin and brittle like a rubber band about to snap. Then, the phone rang. It was not a text. It was a call. The screen lit up with the name I dreaded most. David. I stared at it. My heart hammered against my ribs. A frantic, irregular rhythm. I knew I did not have to answer. Our court orders said communication should be primarily via email or text for documentation purposes. But I also knew David. If I did not answer, he would call the landline. If I did not answer that, he would show up at my door, claiming he was worried about the welfare of the children because I was unreachable. He would turn my silence into a weapon. I picked up the phone and swiped the green icon. Hello? David, I said. My voice was steady, practiced. I had spent 2 years perfecting the art of sounding bored when I was actually terrified. Elizabeth, David said. His voice was not angry. That was the worst part. If he had been yelling, I could have hung up. I could have recorded it and shown it to a judge. But David never yelled. His voice was smooth, deep, and dripping with a sickening kind of pity. It was the voice of a disappointed school principal speaking to a slow child. I got your email, he continued, the sound of ice clinking against glass audible in the background. I have to say, Liz, I am genuinely concerned. Concerned about what? I asked, watching Leo run past the kitchen doorway with a flashlight. about your priorities. David Sehel, look, I understand you planned this little camping trip. I am sure sleeping on the ground is very Haling. 2 is greater than rustic. But we are talking about a once-in-a-lifetime family gathering. My grandfather is 90 years old. Vanessa has gone out of her way to hire a private chef who specializes in kid-friendly meals. She bought them gifts. She is trying so hard to build a bridge here. And you are just Haoling. 2 is greater than burning it. I bit the inside of my cheek until I tasted copper. I am not burning anything. David, I said, keeping my volume low so the kids would not hear. I promised them this trip. Leo has been talking about fishing for weeks. We are leaving at 5 in the morning. There was a pause on the line, a long, heavy silence. Is this about the fishing, Liz? Or is this about Vanessa? The question hung in the air, toxic and heavy. Excuse me? I asked, though I knew exactly where he was going. You know what I mean, he said, his tone shifting slightly, becoming more intimate, more conspiratorial. I know it is hard for you. I know you look at our life now. The yacht, the house, the travel, and it must be painful given your current Haoling. 2 is greater than financial situation. But do not take that jealousy out on the kids. Do not deprive them of a luxury experience just because you cannot provide it yourself. That is selfish, Elizabeth. And frankly, it borders on pathological. Inner monologue. He is doing it again. He is twisting reality until I do not know which way is up. Is he right? Am I jealous? I look at my stained apron and my empty bank account. And, yes, I hate him. But is that why I said no? No, I said no because Leo wants to catch a fish, not wear a linen suit. I said no because I am their mother, not their schedule coordinator. I am not jealous, David, I said, my voice trembling slightly despite my best efforts. I am being a mother. The answer is no. We are going camping. Please do not call again tonight. I hung up. I did not wait for his response. I threw the phone onto the sofa cushions as if it were a venomous snake. My hands were shaking so hard I had to sit down on the floor. I pulled my knees to my chest. The conversation replayed in my head on a loop. Pathological, selfish, jealous. The words were like tiny hooks, digging into my insecurities. Maybe I was selfish. Maybe a good mother would want her children to be on a yacht with a private chef instead of eating beans from a can in the woods. Before I could calm my breathing, the phone chimed, a text message this time. It was not from David. It was from Vanessa. I picked up the phone, my vision blurring slightly with unshed tears. Hey, sweetie, David told me you are not letting the kids come. I am literally crying right now. Broken heart emoji. I just wanted to give them a taste of the good life for one day. I bought Mia the cutest Dior dress. It would have looked so precious on her. It is a shame they have to spend the weekend in the dirt. But I guess we all have different standards for what our kids deserve. Hope the bugs are not too bad. I stared at the words, the good life, different standards, dirt. It was a masterclass in passive aggression. She had managed to insult my parenting, my financial status, and my character in 3 sentences, all while pretending to be the victim. I walked into the bathroom and locked the door. I turned on the faucet so the running water would mask the sound of my ragged breathing. I looked at myself in the mirror. The fluorescent light was unforgiving. It highlighted the dark circles under my eyes, the hollows of my cheeks, the stray gray hairs I was too young to have. Inner monologue. Look at you. You are a mess. You are tired. You are poor, and they are winning. They have the money, the shine, the standards. David is right about one thing. I am terrified. I am not terrified of the woods or the bears. I am terrified that one day, Leo and Mia will look at me, and then look at Vanessa, and they will make the choice I cannot afford to counter. Who chooses the dirt when they can have the gold? I splashed cold water on my face. The shock of it made me gasp. I dried my skin with a rough towel that had seen better days. I would not let them see me break. Not tonight. I opened the bathroom door and walked back out to the living room. All right, guys, I announced, forcing a brightness into my voice that felt brittle and fake. Who is ready to pack the marshmallows? Leo cheered and threw his hands up. Mia clapped. They did not see the fear in my eyes. They did not see the crack that had just formed in the foundation of my resolve. They only saw their mom, smiling a smile that did not quite reach her eyes, but the seed had been planted. David's voice whispered in the back of my mind, drowning out their laughter. You are ruining them. Elizabeth, you are ruining everything. The morning sun had barely begun to bleed through the thin, yellowing curtains of my bedroom window when the vibration started. It was not a single buzz. It was a continuous, angry hum against the wood of my nightstand. My phone was convulsing. I sat up, blinking against the grit in my eyes. The digital clock next to the bed read 6 in the morning. We were supposed to be on the road in an hour. The car was packed. The kids were still asleep. For a fleeting second, I thought perhaps David had changed his mind. Maybe he was texting to apologize. Maybe he was wishing us a safe trip. I was so naive. I picked up the phone. The screen was flooded. Notifications from Facebook and Instagram were stacking up so fast I could barely read them. I did not even have the apps installed on my phone anymore to save data. But the email notifications were relentless. You have been tagged in a post. Jessica Miller commented on a post you were mentioned in. Sarah Jenkins reacted to a photo. My stomach dropped. Jessica and Sarah were old friends from college. People I had not spoken to since the divorce because they still went to David's barbecue parties. Why were they talking about me at 6 in the morning? I opened the browser and logged in. My hands were shaking so bad I mistyped my password twice. When the page finally loaded, Vanessa's face filled the screen. It was a black and white photo. Of course it was. It was artistic, grainy, and carefully composed. Vanessa was sitting on the edge of a pristine white bed, her head in her hands, her shoulders hunched in a posture of utter defeat. The lighting was perfect, highlighting the delicate curve of her spine and the diamond ring on her finger. And then there was the caption. It was an essay. Being a stepmother is a silent kind of grief. It began, you open your heart to children who are not yours. You buy the gifts. You cook the meals. You pray for them at night. You try to build a bridge of love. But there is always someone standing on the other side with a match, ready to burn it down. Today was supposed to be a celebration of family. Instead, it is a reminder that no matter how much love you give, you cannot compete with the bitterness of a biological mother who uses her children as pawns. I am heartbroken that I will not see my babies this weekend due to petty jealousy. Please pray for our family. We are fighting against hate with love. I stopped breathing. The air in my lungs turned to stone. My babies. She called them her babies. I scrolled down to the comments. It was a massacre. Stay strong. Vanessa, you are a saint for putting up with her. Some women just cannot move on. So toxic. It is child abuse to keep kids from a loving father. You should sue. Hundreds of them. People who had never met me. People who did not know that I was the one working double shifts to buy asthma medicine for Leo. People who did not know Vanessa had once asked me if Mia's crying could be muted like a television. I felt a scream building in my throat. Hot and acidic. I wanted to throw the phone against the wall. I wanted to reply to every single comment and scream the truth. But I could not. Anything I said would just look like the rantings of the bitter biological mother she had painted me to be. I sat there, frozen, while the digital mob tore my character apart piece by piece. Sao yu jing hao ling. Dva, Mom. Leo's voice made me jump. He was standing in the doorway, rubbing his eyes, wearing his favorite dinosaur pajamas. Are we going fishing now? I looked at him. I tried to smile, but my face felt like a mask that was cracking. I shoved the phone under my pillow. Yes, baby, I whispered. Go brush your teeth. I stood up, my legs feeling weak. I needed coffee. I needed to get us out of this apartment before the internet poison seeped into the real world. I walked into the kitchen and reached for the coffee grounds. That was when the knock came. It was not a friendly knock. It was not a neighbor asking for sugar. It was 3 sharp, authoritative raps. Hard, precise, demanding. I froze. It was too early for visitors. A cold dread washed over me, heavier than the fear I had felt reading the comments. I walked to the door and looked through the peephole. 2 people stood in the hallway. A woman in a gray business suit holding a clipboard, and a police officer with his arms crossed. My heart slammed against my ribs. I unlocked the deadbolt with trembling fingers and opened the door. Elizabeth Bennet? The woman asked. Her voice was flat, devoid of warmth. She had wire-rimmed glasses and eyes that scanned the room behind me before they even looked at my face. Yes? I managed to choke out. I am Miss Gable from Child Protective Services, she said, flashing a badge that hung around her neck. And this is Officer Miller. We received a report regarding the welfare of your children. Leo and Mia Bennet. We need to come inside. The world tilted on its axis. The hallway seemed to stretch and warp. A report? I repeated, my voice rising an octave. What kind of report? We received an anonymous tip claiming that the children are living in unsanitary conditions and that there are unsecured narcotics in the home, accessible to minors. Miss Gable recited. She stepped forward, forcing me to step back. Narcotics? I laughed, a hysterical, jagged sound. I do not even have aspirin in the cabinet. This is a mistake. We are just about to leave for a camping trip. We need to inspect the premises. Miss Bennet, the officer said. His tone was not aggressive, but it was final. He stepped into my living room, his boots heavy on the worn carpet. I stood by the door, helpless, as they invaded my sanctuary. Miss Gable walked into the kitchen. She opened the refrigerator. She made a note on her clipboard. She opened the cupboards. She ran a finger along the counter. Inner monologue. Look at them. They are looking for filth. They are looking for failure. They see the dishes in the sink from last night and they write it down. They see the pile of camping gear on the floor and they see clutter and hazard. Who called them? Who would say I have drugs? Sao Jing Hao, Ling, Dva, David. The realization hit me with the force of a physical blow. Of course, the email about the grandfather was the bait. The concern on the phone was the setup. And now, this was the execution. He knew I would be home this morning. He knew I would be flustered trying to pack. Can I see the children? Miss Gable asked, turning from the kitchen. They are getting dressed, I said, stepping in front of the hallway that led to their bedroom. Please, do not scare them. They are only 6 and 4. I am not here to scare them. Miss Bennet, I am here to ensure their safety. She sidestepped me and walked down the hall. I followed, my hands clenching and unclenching at my sides. Leo was sitting on his bed, pulling on a sock. Mia was still in her pajamas, holding her stuffed rabbit. They both looked up, wide-eyed, as the stranger entered their room. "Who are you?" Leo asked. "Hello, Leo," Miss Gable said. She did not smile. "I am just here to look at your room. Is that okay?" Leo looked at me. His eyes were filled with confusion. "Mom, it is okay." "Leo," I said, forcing my voice to stop shaking. "This lady is just Ling. 2# is greater than checking the building." Miss Gable looked under the beds. She opened the closet. She picked up a bottle of children's cough syrup from the dresser and examined the label intensely, as if it were heroin. Inner monologue. "Do not cry. Do not scream. If you cry, they write emotionally unstable. If you scream, they write aggressive. Stand still. Breathe. Let them violate your home. Let them judge the second-hand clothes and the toys from the dollar store." After 20 minutes that felt like 20 years, they returned to the living room. Miss Gable made a final note on her clipboard. "Well?" I asked. My arms were wrapped around myself, holding my ribs together so I would not fall apart. "We did not find any narcotics," Miss Gable said, her tone sounding almost disappointed. "However, the apartment is quite cluttered, Miss Bennet, and I noticed there is very little fresh produce in the refrigerator." "We are going camping," I said through gritted teeth. "The food is in the cooler. We will keep this report on file as unsubstantiated for now," she said, ignoring my explanation. "But we will be conducting a follow-up visit in 30 days. And Miss Bennet?" She paused at the door, looking me up and down with eyes that stripped away every ounce of my dignity. "If we receive another call, the outcome might be different. Make sure this place is spotless." The officer nodded at me, and they left. The door clicked shut. I locked it. I slid the deadbolt, and then I slid down the wood until I hit the floor. I sat there in the silence of my hallway. My hands were shaking so hard I could not make them stop. I looked at my hands. These hands scrubbed floors. These hands held feverish foreheads. These hands worked until they bled. And yet, in the eyes of the law, in the eyes of the internet, in the eyes of the woman who just walked out, these were the hands of a failure. I looked at the camping gear. The joy was gone. The excitement was dead. We could not go. I could not leave the apartment now. What if they came back? What if David sent someone else? I felt like a prisoner in my own home. Ling. Dva. "Mom?" Leo was standing there again. He had his fishing pole in his hand. "Are we leaving? The sun is up." I looked at my son. I saw the hope in his face. And I had to break his heart because his father wanted to win a game I did not even know we were playing. I pulled myself up. I walked over to him and knelt down. I took the plastic rod from his hand. "Leo, baby," I said, my voice cracking. "We, Ling. 2# is greater than we have to stay home today." "Why?" he asked, his lip trembling. "Because," I whispered, pulling him into a hug so he would not see the tears spilling down my cheeks. "Because something came up." I held him as he started to cry. I listened to his small sobs and felt the wetness on my shoulder. And in that moment, the sadness in my heart began to curdle. It hardened. It turned cold and sharp. David did not just want the children for a party. He did not just want to annoy me. He had sent the police to my door. He had accused me of drugs. He had tried to have my children taken away. This was not a custody dispute. This was an annihilation. I looked at the phone on the counter, still buzzing with notifications from Vanessa's army of followers. Inner monologue. You think you can crush me, David? You think you can shame me into submission? You made a mistake. You forgot who I am. I am not just the waitress you threw away. I am the mother of your children, and you just declared war on the wrong woman. I wiped my face. I stood up. I was not going to hide. I was going to find out exactly what they were planning. And then, I was going to burn their perfect little world to the ground. The sound of a credit card machine declining is unique. It is a sharp, jagged beep that cuts through the ambient noise of a grocery store like a knife. It is the sound of shame. I stood at the checkout counter of the local market, my hand hovering over the plastic reader. The screen flashed a red message that made my stomach turn to lead. Transaction declined. Insufficient funds. There must be a mistake. I said to the teenage cashier. She popped a bubble of gum and looked at me with bored, glassy eyes. Try it again, she said, not moving to help. I swiped the card again. My fingers were slippery with sweat. Beep, declined. Behind me, a line of people shifted impatiently. A man in a construction vest sighed loudly, checking his watch. A woman with a stroller murmured something about people needing to check their balance before holding up the line. I checked my banking app on my phone. The numbers on the screen made no sense. The balance was negative. The automatic deposit for child support, the money that David was legally required to transfer on the first of the month, was missing. He had not just forgotten. David never forgot anything. He was a man who color-coded his sock drawer. This was a surgical strike. Inner monologue. He knows the rent is due in 3 days. He knows the electric bill was yesterday. He cut the line. He is not just trying to take the kids. He is trying to starve us out. He wants me to crawl to him, begging for scraps, so he can pat me on the head and call me incompetent. I am sorry, I whispered to the cashier. My face burned with heat. Saoyedinghaling. 2 hashes greater than. I have to put some things back. I took the carton of milk, the fresh apples, and the box of cereal out of the bag. I left only the bread and the peanut butter. I paid with the crumpled dollar bills I had in my pocket, tip money from my last shift. I walked out of the store with one light bag, feeling the weight of the world crushing my spine. When I got back to the apartment building, I saw Mr. Henderson standing by the mailboxes. He was the landlord, a man with a face like a dried apple and a temperament to match. Usually, he just grunted at me, but today, he stepped into my path. Miss Bennet, he said. He did not say hello. Mr. Henderson, I said, clutching my grocery bag. Is everything okay? We had police here this morning, he said. His voice was loud, echoing in the tiled hallway, and some woman from the city. Child services. It was a misunderstanding, I said quickly. Someone made a false report. It is all cleared up. I run a quiet building. Miss Bennet, he interrupted, crossing his arms over his chest. I do not want cops in my hallway. I do not want social workers sniffing around. It scares the other tenants. If I see one more cruiser parked out front, I am going to have to ask you to leave. Do you understand? But I have a lease. I stammered, and there are clauses in that lease about nuisance and illegal activity. He shot back. Consider this your warning. He turned and walked away, his keys jangling on his belt loop. I walked up the 3 flights of stairs, my legs feeling like they were moving through molasses. My sanctuary was gone. My home was now a place where I was being watched, judged, and threatened. When I reached my door, I saw something taped to the wood. It was not a note from a neighbor. It was a thick envelope. A man in a windbreaker was just walking away down the hall. "You have been served, madam," he called out over his shoulder without looking back. I pulled the envelope off the door. My hands shook so hard I tore the paper as I opened it. Superior Court of Illinois, Family Division, Petitioner, David Sterling, Respondent, Elizabeth Bennett, Nature of Action. Emergency motion for full physical and legal custody. I leaned against the door frame, reading the legal jargon that blurred before my eyes. Saoyu Tsinghaling, 2# is greater than. Petitioner alleges that the respondent is suffering from mental instability. Saoyu Tsinghaling, R. Tsinghao Dayu. Saoyu Tsinghaling, 2# is greater than respondent has engaged in a systematic campaign of parental alienation. Saoyu Tsinghaling, R. Tsinghao Dayu. Saoyu Tsinghao Ling, 2# is greater than respondent is currently living in substandard housing and lacks the financial means to provide basic necessities. Saoyu Tsinghao Ling, R. Tsinghao Dayu. He was suing me for full custody. He was not asking for more weekends. He wanted them, all of them. He wanted to erase me. And the worst part, he was using the very poverty he had caused as evidence against me. He cut my money, then told the court I was too poor to be a mother. It was evil. It was brilliant. Inner monologue. I cannot breathe. The hallway is shrinking. Parental alienation. I am the one who reminds them to make him Father's Day cards. I am the one who smiles when they talk about his big house. He is gaslighting the entire judicial system. He has high-priced lawyers, experts, psychologists. I have a loaf of bread and a negative bank balance. I went inside and locked the door. The apartment felt cold. Leo and Mia were watching cartoons, blissfully unaware that their father was trying to pull them out of this room forever. I needed a lawyer, a real one, not the public defender who was overworked and underpaid. But lawyers cost thousands of dollars just to say hello. I walked into my bedroom and opened the small wooden box on my dresser. Inside lay a single gold ring with a small, vintage sapphire. It had belonged to my grandmother. She had given it to me on her deathbed, telling me to keep it for a rainy day. It was not just a ring. It was the only thing I owned that had value. It was my history. It was the promise that I came from people who loved me. I looked at the ring, then I looked at the legal papers on the kitchen table. Inner monologue. I am sorry, Grandma. It is pouring rain today. 2 hours later, I stood in front of a shop with bars on the windows and a neon sign that buzzed incessantly. Golden Loan. The man behind the counter had grease under his fingernails and looked at me like I was a desperate junkie. Maybe I looked like one. My hair was messy. My eyes were red, and I was trembling. I placed the ring on the glass counter. "How much?" I asked. He picked it up, put a loop to his eye, and hummed. "Old cut." He grunted. "Stone is okay. Gold is soft. $200. It is worth at least $800. I said, my voice rising. "It is an antique. 200. He repeated, not even looking at me. "Take it or leave it." I looked at the ring. I thought about Leo's smile. I thought about Mia's laugh. I thought about David's smug face on the yacht. Inner monologue. This is what it costs. This is the price of fighting back. I will sell my past to save their future. I will strip myself bare if I have to. Take the ring, take my pride, Just give me the weapon I need to kill this monster. I will take it, I whispered. He counted out 10 $20 bills and slid them across the counter. I took the money. It felt dirty in my hands. I walked out of the pawn shop into the blinding afternoon sun. I had $200. It was not enough for a retainer, but it was enough for a consultation. It was a start. I was spiraling, falling down a dark hole with no bottom in sight. But as I clutched that cash in my pocket, I made a silent vow. If I was going to hit the bottom, I was going to drag David down with me. The mediation room smelled of lemon furniture polish and stale anxiety. It was a windowless box in the basement of the courthouse, designed to force people to agree, but it felt more like a cage. The air conditioner hummed a low, monotonous drone that vibrated in my teeth. I sat on one side of the mahogany table, my hands clasped tightly in my lap to hide the fact that my fingernails were bitten down to the quick. I was wearing my only suit, a black polyester ensemble I had bought for a funeral 3 years ago. It was tight across the shoulders, and the hem of the trousers was unraveling, a loose thread dangling near my ankle, like a testament to my life coming apart. Opposite me sat David and Vanessa. They looked like a magazine advertisement for the perfect American couple. David wore a navy blue suit that fit him like a second skin, his hair perfectly coiffed, his watch catching the fluorescent light with a heavy, expensive glint. Vanessa was in a cream-colored sheath dress, modest yet undeniably high fashion, with a pearl necklace resting against her throat. She looked soft, fragile, and utterly harmless. Inner monologue. Look at them. They shine. They take up space. I feel gray and small, like a smudge of dirt on their pristine windshield. They are not here to negotiate. They are here to witness my execution. The mediator, a weary man named Mr. Clark with bags under his eyes, shuffled his papers. We are here to discuss the emergency motion filed by Mr. Sterling regarding full custody, Mr. Clark said, his voice flat. The goal is to see if we can reach a temporary agreement before the hearing next week. David leaned forward, clasping his hands on the table. He looked at me with eyes that were soft with faux concern. I just want what is best for the children, he said, his voice smooth as velvet. Elizabeth, you look exhausted. Truly, I am worried that your current mental state is affecting your ability to provide a stable environment. The incident with the police, Sao Jing Haoling, 2# is greater than the financial instability. Sao Jing Haoling, 2# is greater than it is too much for one person. Let us help you. Let the children stay with us until you get back on your feet. He made it sound so reasonable. He made it sound like charity. If I did not know he was the one who called the police and drained my bank account, I might have believed him. I am perfectly capable of taking care of my children. David, I said, my voice steady but thin. The police found nothing because there was nothing to find. And my financial situation is only difficult because you violated the court order regarding support payments. Vanessa let out a small, delicate gasp. She reached out and touched David's arm, looking at him with wide, fearful eyes. David, she whispered, loud enough for the mediator to hear. She is so aggressive. It is scary. Mr. Clark looked up from his notes, frowning at me. Miss Bennet, please keep your tone civil, he warned. Inner monologue. Civil? He starves my children and I have to be civil? She acts like a frightened doe while she stabs me in the back. And I am the aggressive one? I am screaming on the inside. I am screaming so loud I am surprised the glass water pitcher does not shatter. Mr. Clark stood up, I need to grab a file from the main office. I will be back in 2 minutes. Please, sit quietly. Do not engage in conflict. The door clicked shut behind him. The silence that followed was suffocating. For a moment, nobody moved. Then, Vanessa shifted. The mask of the terrified victim slipped, just for a second, revealing the smirk beneath. She leaned across the table. The scent of her expensive floral perfume invaded my personal space, cloying and sweet. You know, Liz, she said, her voice a low purr, you really should just sign the papers. It is pathetic watching you struggle. I stared at the water glass in front of me. I did not look at her. I am not signing anything, I said. Vanessa laughed. It was a dry, brittle sound. Why not? Do you really think those kids want to live in that dump with you? Last time they came over, Mia asked me why your house smells like old soup. She calls my house the castle. She calls your house the box. I felt a heat rising up my neck, hot and prickly. Stop it, I warned. She did not stop. She leaned closer, her voice dropping to a whisper that was meant only for me. Face it, honey, you are just the incubator. You served your purpose. You pushed them out, but I am the one who is going to raise them. They like my clothes better. They like my food better. They even like me better. You are just the poor, a sad woman they visit on holidays out of pity. My vision blurred. The room narrowed down to her glossy, pink lips and the cruel tilt of her head, the rage that had been building for weeks, the humiliation of the grocery store, the terror of the police raid, the exhaustion of the sleepless nights. It all coalesced into a single, blinding point of white heat. Inner monologue, incubator, pity, the box. My hand moved before my brain could stop it. I grabbed the plastic cup of water sitting in front of me. I stood up and swung my arm. The water arched through the air, a clear, shimmering sheet of liquid. It splashed directly into Vanessa's face, soaking her perfect hair, dripping down her pearl necklace, and darkening the front of her cream dress. Vanessa shrieked. It was a loud, theatrical scream that echoed off the walls. She jumped up, knocking her chair back. Oh my God, David. She attacked me. I stood there, breathing hard, the empty cup still crushed in my hand. The silence shattered. The heat in my blood instantly turned to ice. I looked at David. He was not helping Vanessa. He was not checking to see if she was hurt. He was holding his phone up, the camera lens pointed directly at me. A small, red timer was counting seconds on the screen. He lowered the phone slowly, and a smile spread across his face. It was not a smile of victory. It was a smile of total, predatory satisfaction. Got it, he said calmly. The door flew open. Mr. Clark rushed in, eyes wide. What is going on here? I heard screaming. David turned to the mediator, his face instantly shifting back to the mask of the concerned. Victimized husband. She just attacked my wife. Mr. Clark, David said, gesturing to the dripping Vanessa, physically attacked her. I have it all on video. I told you she was unstable. I told you she was dangerous. Vanessa was sobbing now, great heaving sobs, clutching her chest. I felt the blood drain from my face. My legs felt like they were made of wood. I dropped the plastic cup. It hit the table with a hollow thud. Inner monologue. It was a trap. The insults, the leaning in. They wanted me to snap. They needed proof that I was the crazy ex-wife. And I handed it to them on a silver platter. I just lost everything. Miss Bennett, Mr. Clark said, his voice cold and hard. I think you should leave. Now, I will be terminating this mediation and submitting a report to the judge immediately. I looked at David one last time. He winked at me, a tiny, almost imperceptible wink. I turned and walked out of the room. I walked past the security guards. I walked out of the courthouse and into the blinding sunlight of the parking lot. I did not cry. I was past crying. As I stood on the concrete, listening to the city traffic, something inside me shifted. The fear that had paralyzed me for weeks evaporated. In its place was a cold, heavy stone of resolve. I had played by the rules. I had been polite. I had been the victim, and it had gotten me nowhere. David wanted a fight. He wanted a villain. Sautjinghaling. Due cancelletto è maggiore di fine. If I was going to go down, I was going to make sure the splash I made was big enough to drown them both. My phone rang as I was unlocking the door to my apartment. It was my lawyer, Mr. Henderson. Not the landlord, but the cheap public attorney I had managed to retain with the pawn shop money. Elizabeth, he said, not wasting time on greetings. I just got the email from the mediator and the video file from David's counsel. I closed my eyes, leaning my forehead against the cool wood of the door. I know I cannot represent you anymore, he said. My eyes snapped open. Excuse me? This is assault. Elizabeth, it is on tape. You threw water on the opposing party during a court-ordered mediation. The judge is going to see this as a direct validation of their claims about your temper. It is a conflict of interest for me to continue when the client deliberately sabotages the case. I am filing a motion to withdraw. Good luck. The line went dead. I stood in the hallway, the silence ringing in my ears. I had no lawyer. I had no money. I had a video of me committing assault circulating in the legal system, and I had 2 children waiting inside who thought their mother was a hero. Not a cautionary tale. I walked inside. The apartment was dark. I had not turned on the lights to save electricity. I sat on the couch and stared at the wall. Inner monologue. This is it. This is how it ends. Not with a bang, but with a withdrawal slip. They will take Leo and Mia. They will pack their little suitcases. Vanessa will throw away their thrift store clothes and dress them in beige linen. And I will be the woman who visits them once a month under supervision. While David smirks from the doorway. The next morning, I woke up with a headache that felt like a nail being driven into my temple. I dropped the kids off at school, hugging them a little too long, breathing in the scent of their shampoo. I promised I would fight. I had to fight. I went to the library. I sat at a public computer and searched for lawyers who take impossible cases. The list was short. Most of them were sharks who wanted $50,000 up front. Then I saw a name on a forum for single mothers. Henry Vance. Old school. Hates bullies. Will work for payment plans if he believes you. His office was on the south side of the city, above a laundromat that smelled of detergent and fried onions. The stairs were narrow and creaked under my weight. The sign on the frosted glass door just said Vance in peeling black letters. Sautjinghaling. 2 hash is greater than I knock. Come in if you have money. Go away if you are selling cookies. A gruff voice yelled from inside. I pushed the door open. The office was a disaster. Stacks of paper files towered on every surface, like precarious skyscrapers. A ceiling fan wobbled dangerously overhead. Behind a desk, buried under law books, sat a man who looked more like a retired boxer than a lawyer. He had shock-white hair, a nose that had been broken at least twice, and he was eating a ham sandwich. Henry Vance? I asked. Depends, he mumbled, chewing. Who is asking? Elizabeth Bennet. I am being sued for full custody. My husband is David Sterling. Henry stopped chewing. He swallowed hard and wiped his mouth with a paper napkin. Sterling? Like Sterling Industries? The guy who builds those ugly condos downtown? Sao Tsing Hao Ling. Ketu? Yes. He leaned back in his chair, the springs groaning in protest. He looked me up and down, his eyes sharp and assessing. I heard about you, he said. You are the splasher. Word travels fast in the courthouse. You threw water on the new trophy wife. I felt my face heat up. She provoked me. They always do. Kid, that is the game, and you fell for it. Why should I help you? You are a sinking ship because I am innocent. I said, my voice shaking, because he is gaslighting me. He cut my money. He called Child Protective Services. He is trying to erase me. And Sao Yu Jing Hao Ling, 2 hashes greater than I took a breath, pulling the universal serial bus drive I had prepared out of my pocket. And because I think he is hiding something, it is not just about the kids. It is about money. Henry stared at the universal serial bus drive. He did not take it. I cost $300 an hour. I have $200 cash, and I can pay you $50 a week for the rest of my life. I said. He stared at me. The silence stretched out. I could hear the rumble of the washing machines downstairs. Then, he said. He reached out and snatched the universal serial bus drive. Sit down, he grunted. Tell me about this grandfather. For the next hour, I talked. I told him everything. The email about the birthday, the sudden interest in the family photo, the grandfather who never cared before. Henry listened. He did not interrupt. He took notes on a yellow legal pad with a fountain pen. When I finished, he leaned back and steepled his fingers. Here is the thing. Liz, he said. His voice was gravelly but serious. Guys like David Sterling do not do things for sentiment. They do things for profit. If he wants those kids on a yacht for a photo, it is because that photo is worth something. He pulled a thick book from a stack. Old man Sterling is dying, Henry said. Rumor is, he is rewriting his will. He is a traditionalist. Values family stability above all else. If David looks like a divorced playboy with a chaotic ex-wife, he gets nothing. If he looks like a devoted father with a happy, blended family, Sao Yu Tsing Hao Ling, 2 hashes greater than he gets the keys to the kingdom. It is about the inheritance, I whispered. It is always about the inheritance, Henry said. But we need proof, and we need to survive the hearing next week. He stood up and walked to a filing cabinet. You are going to lose that hearing. Liz, he said bluntly, the video is damning. The judge is going to give him temporary custody. My heart stopped. No, please, listen to me, Henry snapped. It is temporary. We lose the battle to win the war. Let him take them. Let him think he has won. That is when he will get sloppy. That is when he will make a mistake. But my children, Sao Yu Jing Hao Ling, 2 hash is greater than I choked out, will be fine for 2 weeks, Henry said, his eyes softening just a fraction. They are resilient, but if you want them back forever, you have to trust me. You have to let go of the rope so he falls on his ass. I walked out of his office an hour later. The sun was setting, casting long, bloody shadows across the street. I went home. I packed 2 small suitcases. I put Leo's favorite dinosaur pajamas in one. I put Mia's stuffed rabbit in the other. I packed their toothbrushes. I packed a picture of me and tucked it deep inside Leo's side pocket. I sat on the floor of their room and wept. I cried until my throat was raw. The next morning, the court order arrived. Emergency temporary custody granted to David Sterling. When David's black sport utility vehicle pulled up to the curb, I was waiting. Leo and Mia were holding my hands, looking confused. "Mommy, are you coming?" Mia asked. "No, baby," I said, kneeling down to look her in the eye. "You are going to have a sleepover at Daddy's house. It is going to be fun. You get to see a big boat. I do not want to go without you," Leo said, gripping my hand tighter. "I know, Leo, I know, but you have to be brave. You have to look out for Mia. Can you do that for me?" He nodded, tears welling in his eyes. Vanessa sat in the passenger seat. She did not look at me. She was checking her makeup in the visor mirror. David got out. He took the suitcases from my hands. "Thank you for being reasonable, Elizabeth," he said quietly. I looked at him. I looked at the man I had once loved, and I felt nothing but a cold, dark void. "You have not won, David," I whispered. He just smiled, loaded the kids into the car, and drove away. I stood on the curb, watching the taillights disappear around the corner. The silence of the empty street crashed down on me. My arms felt impossibly light and impossibly heavy at the same time. I went back up to my apartment. It was silent. The toys were still on the floor. The half-eaten toast was on the table. I was alone. But in the silence, I heard Henry's voice. "Let him think he has won." I walked to the kitchen table. I opened my laptop. I started typing. I was not a mother packing lunches anymore. I was a detective. I was a soldier. And I was going to find the rot at the center of David's life and expose it to the world, even if I had to tear the whole city apart to do it. The courtroom was a theater of mahogany and silence. It smelled of old paper, floor wax, and the damp wool of cheap suits. To me, it smelled like fear. I sat at the defendant's table, my hands folded so tightly in my lap to hide the fact that my fingernails were bitten down to the quick. Beside me, Henry Vance looked like he had just woken up in a library archive. His suit was rumpled, a stark contrast to the sleek, sharkskin gray ensemble worn by David's lead attorney, a man named Mr. Sterling. No relation, just a coincidence that David found amusing. The gallery was surprisingly full. David's public relations team had done their work. There were reporters in the back row, pens poised, hungry for the fall of the unstable ex-wife who attacked the new, philanthropic Mrs. Sterling. David and Vanessa sat at the plaintiff's table. They were the picture of aggrieved nobility. David whispered something to Vanessa, and she nodded, dabbing at dry eyes with a lace handkerchief. They did not look at me. To them, I was already a ghost in the machine, a glitch they were about to delete. Inner monologue. Breathe. Liz, just breathe. They have the script. But we have the truth. Henry says the truth is a slow knife. I just hope it cuts deep enough before they take my children forever. All rise, the bailiff bellowed. The Honorable Judge Beverly Thorne entered. She was a woman of sharp angles and steel gray hair, known for her intolerance of courtroom theatrics. She took her seat, her black robe billowing around her like storm clouds. "Be seated," she commanded. "We are here on the matter of Sterling versus Bennett. Petition for full custody. Proceed." David's lawyer stood up. He moved with the grace of a predator. "Your Honor," he began, his voice smooth and projecting to the back of the room. "We are here today not out of malice, but out of necessity. We are here to save two innocent children from a chaotic, unstable, and increasingly violent environment. We will present evidence that the mother, Elizabeth Bennet, is suffering from severe emotional dysregulation that endangers the safety of Leo and Mia Sterling. He called his first witness, Dr. Richard Ayres. Dr. Ayres was a man who charged $500 an hour to tell rich men that their wives were crazy. He sat in the witness box, adjusting his rimless glasses, looking at me with clinical detachment. In my professional opinion, he stated, referencing a thick file in his hands, Miss Bennet exhibits classic signs of unwarranted aggression and paranoid ideation. She perceives threats where there are none. She interprets generosity, such as the invitation to the birthday party, as hostility. This creates a toxic alienation dynamic. The children are absorbing her anxiety. They are essentially emotional hostages. Inner monologue. Hostages? I read them bedtime stories. I hold their hands when they get shots at the doctor. I am their mother, not their captor, but looking at him, so calm, so authoritative, even I am starting to wonder, am I the villain in this story? Is my love actually poison? Then came the video. David's lawyer set up a screen. The lights in the courtroom dimmed, and there, larger than life, was the mediation room. The grainy footage showed Vanessa leaning in, her whispers inaudible, and then me, leaping up like a wild animal, hurling the water. The courtroom gasped, a collective intake of breath that sucked the air out of my lungs. On the screen, I looked deranged. My hair was messy, my face twisted in rage. Vanessa looked small and defenseless. Your Honor, David's lawyer said, letting the freeze frame of the water mid-air linger on the screen. This was an unprovoked assault during a peace negotiation. If she does this to an adult in a courthouse, imagine what she might do to a 6-year-old behind closed doors when she loses her temper. I looked down at the table. I could feel the eyes of the room burning into my skin. I felt naked. I felt stripped of every sacrifice I had ever made. Henry Vance leaned over to me. Keep your head up, he whispered. His breath smelled of peppermint and stale coffee. The show is just starting. Cross-examination. Mr. Vance? The judge asked, looking at Henry with a mixture of skepticism and pity. Henry stood up. He did not smooth his suit. He did not smile. He picked up a single manila folder and walked toward the witness stand, dragging his feet slightly. Dr. Ayres, Henry croaked. You mentioned paranoid ideation. That implies she is imagining threats. Correct? That is correct, the doctor replied, looking bored. So, if someone were actually plotting to take her children and ruin her financially, her fear would not be paranoia. It would be a rational survival response. Is that fair? Objection. David's lawyer shot up. Calls for speculation. Sustained. Judge Thorne said, move along. Mr. Vance. Henry shrugged. No further questions for the doctor. The room murmured. That was it? He was not going to fight the diagnosis? I looked at Henry in panic, but he just winked at me. A slow, heavy wink. Call your first witness. Mr. Vance, the judge said. We called David Sterling to the stand. David stood up. He buttoned his jacket. He walked to the stand with a confident stride, nodding respectfully to the judge. He took the oath. His hand steady on the Bible, Henry walked around the podium. He placed the manila folder on the railing of the witness box. Mr. Sterling, Henry began, his voice deceptively casual. You are a successful man. Chief Executive Officer of Sterling Industries, a pillar of the community. I try to be, David said humbly. And this lawsuit, Saoyu Halin, 2 is greater than this, is all about love. Is it not? You just want to protect your children. Absolutely, David said, looking directly at the reporters. My children are my world. That is beautiful, Henry said. He paused, scratching his chin. So, let us talk about your grandfather, Arthur Sterling. David blinked. The mask slipped for a fraction of a second. A tiny twitch at the corner of his eye. My grandfather? What does he have to do with this? Well, Henry said, opening the folder. I have here a copy of the proposed amendment to the Sterling Family Trust, dated 3 weeks ago. It is fascinating reading. It says that upon his death, the controlling shares of the company, worth approximately $40 million, will pass to you. But there is a clause, a stability clause. Henry pulled out a paper and put on his reading glasses. The beneficiary must demonstrate a stable, nuclear family unit residing in the primary estate with full legal custody of any heirs. Henry looked over his glasses at David. If you do not have full custody of Leo and Mia by the time the old man kicks the bucket, or if you are seen as a part-time father, those shares go to your cousin, Stephen. Is that correct? David shifted in his seat. The arrogance was evaporating, replaced by a rigid tension. My grandfather wants the best for the family legacy, David said tightly. That is standard estate planning. So, the yacht party, Henry continued, ignoring the explanation. The urgent need for a complete family photo, the sudden rush to get the kids this specific weekend. It was not about a birthday, was it? It was about proving to a dying man that you had the assets secured so you could secure the bag. Objection, David's lawyer yelled. Argumentative. Overruled, Judge Thorne said, leaning forward. She was looking at David now. I want to hear the answer. It was about family unity, David snapped, his voice rising. Right, Henry said. Unity. Which brings me to the money. Henry walked back to our table and picked up a bank statement. He held it up like a dirty rag. 2 months ago, a savings account was opened in Elizabeth Bennett's name at First National Bank. It currently holds $50,000. I gasped. I covered my mouth with my hand. I had $50,000? Where? How? Inner monologue. What is he doing? I do not have that money. If the judge thinks I have $50,000, she will think I lied on my financial affidavit. She will think I am hiding assets. David set me up. He planted it, Mr. Sterling, Henry said, walking back to David. Did you open this account? No, David said quickly. Too quickly. Why would I give her money? She claims she is destitute. That is the funny thing, Henry said. You see, the initial deposit came from a shell company called Blue Horizon Consulting. Sounds fancy. But when my forensic accountant looked into Blue Horizon, he found a direct link to the Sterling Industries discretionary fund. Your signature is on the transfer authorization. The courtroom went silent. Even the air conditioner seemed to stop humming. You embezzled company funds, moved them into a secret account under your ex-wife's name. Saoyu Haling, 2 is greater than Y? Henry asked, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. Was it to accuse her of hiding assets later? Or was it to bribe her? Or maybe, Saoyu Haling, 2 is greater than just maybe. Saoyu Haling, 2 is greater than you needed to hide that money from the Internal Revenue Service, and you thought she was the perfect scapegoat because she is too poor to hire a lawyer who knows how to trace it. David's face turned a mottled shade of red. That is a lie, he shouted. You are twisting everything. Am I? Henry asked. Because if I subpoena the internet protocol address that accessed that account, is it going to ping from your office or hers? Because she does not even have Wi-Fi. David, she uses the library computer. Henry slammed the folder shut. The sound echoed like a gunshot. You did not sue her because she is a bad mother, Henry said, pointing a finger directly at David's chest. You sued her because she is the only obstacle between you and $40 million. You starved her. You gaslit her, and you framed her, all to make sure your grandfather signed that paper before he died. David looked at his lawyer. His lawyer was busy staring at his papers, refusing to make eye contact. David looked at Vanessa. Vanessa was chewing her lip, her eyes darting around the room like a trapped animal. Saoting Haling. 2# is greater than I did it for the children, David stammered, but the conviction was gone. He sounded small. He sounded guilty. Your Honor, Henry said, turning to the judge. We move to dismiss the petition for custody based on fraudulent intent and malicious prosecution. And we will be submitting this evidence to the district attorney regarding the embezzlement of corporate funds. The gallery erupted. Reporters were typing furiously on their phones. Judge Thorne banged her gavel. Order. Order in this court. She looked at David. Her gaze was withering. Mr. Sterling, you will step down and do not leave the building. I sat there, frozen. I looked at David as he walked back to his table. He walked unsteadily, like a man on a ship in a storm. He sat down and reached for Vanessa's hand. She pulled her hand away. I saw it. It was subtle, but I saw it. She recoiled from him. Inner monologue. The cracks are not just in his story. They are in his life. He thought he could buy the truth. He thought he could bury me under paperwork and shame. But Henry was right. Greed makes you sloppy. Arrogance makes you blind. You wanted a show. David, you just got one. Henry sat back down next to me. He let out a long, weary sigh and opened a wrapper of a peppermint candy. That went well, he mumbled. I looked at him, tears stinging my eyes. Not tears of sadness, but tears of relief so profound it felt like vertigo. You found the money, I whispered. I followed the greed. Liz, he said, popping the candy into his mouth. Never fails. But we were not done. David was wounded, but Vanessa was still standing, and she was the one who had poisoned the public against me. Henry turned to me, his eyes gleaming. Ready for the encore? He asked. He stood up again. Your Honor, he said, we have one more witness regarding the character of the stepmother and her relationship with the children. We call Vanessa Sterling to the stand. Vanessa Froese. She looked at David, then at the judge. She stood up, smoothing her cream dress, but her hands were trembling. I watched her walk to the stand, the woman who had called my children props, the woman who had smiled when I begged for mercy. Inner monologue. You wanted the spotlight. Vanessa, you wanted to be the star of the happy family show. Step into the light. Let us see what you really look like without the filters. Vanessa sat in the witness box like a porcelain doll placed on a high shelf. She smoothed the fabric of her cream dress, her fingers trembling just enough to make the diamond on her ring catch the overhead light in frantic, sparking flashes. She offered the jury and the gallery a practiced, trembling smile, the same smile she used in her apology videos when she was caught editing her waistline on Instagram. Henry Vance stood at the podium. He did not smile back. He looked at her the way a butcher looks at a side of beef, deciding where to make the first cut. "Mrs. Sterling," Henry began, his voice deceptively gentle, "you have painted a very moving picture of your devotion to Leo and Mia. You stated in your affidavit that you wanted to save them from a, quote, a life of squalor, unquote." "Yes," Vanessa breathed, her voice soft and airy. "Every child deserves to be spoiled. Every child deserves the best." "The best," Henry repeated. He picked up a stack of printed pages. "I have here the logs from your social media accounts. Specifically, the engagement metrics from the posts featuring the children." He walked toward her. "On June 12th, you posted a photo of Mia crying. The caption read, 'Heartbroken for this little angel who misses her daddy.' That post received 40,000 likes." Vanessa nodded, a tear glistening in her eye. "It was a very emotional day." Henry flipped a page, and yet, 10 minutes after posting that photo, you sent a text message to your friend, "Jessica, would you like to read it?" He held the paper out. Vanessa recoiled as if it were coated in poison. "I, Saoting Hauling, 2# is greater than, I do not recall every text." She stammered. "Allow me," Henry said. He adjusted his glasses. "You wrote, finally got the crying shot. Had to take away her stuffed rabbit to make her wail. Ugh, she is so loud. Can we go to brunch now?" The air in the courtroom shifted. It was a subtle change, like the pressure drop before a thunderstorm. The reporters in the back row stopped typing and looked up. "That is out of context," Vanessa snapped, her voice losing its airy quality. "I was stressed." "Stressed," Henry mused. "Let us talk about stress. Let us talk about the birthday party on the yacht. You testified that this party was crucial for family bonding." "It was," Vanessa insisted. "Grandfather Arthur wanted to see us all together." Henry leaned in close, resting his hands on the railing of the witness box. "And if you did not get that photo, Saoting Hauling, 2# is greater than if David did not secure the inheritance. Saoting Hauling, 2# is greater than, would there still be a yacht? Would there still be Dior dresses for Mia? Of course, David is a successful man." She scoffed. Henry shook his head slowly. "Actually, according to the forensic accounting report I just submitted, Sterling Industries is leveraging heavy debt. Without the grandfather's infusion of $40 million, the company is insolvent. If David loses this custody battle, he loses the trust fund. If he loses the trust fund, he loses the house, the cars, and yes, the yacht." Vanessa's eyes went wide. She looked at David. David was staring at the table, his face the color of ash. He had not told her. Henry saw the look. He pounced. "You did not know?" Henry asked, his voice dripping with mock sympathy. "He did not tell you that he is broke without those kids. He, Saoting Hauling, 2# is greater than he said it was secured." Vanessa whispered. Her mask was slipping. The perfect stepmother was dissolving, revealing the panicked social climber beneath. "So," Henry continued, his voice hardening, "if David is poor, Saoting Hauling, 2# is greater than if he has to move into a 2-bedroom apartment and work a regular job. Saoting Hauling, 2# is greater than, are you still willing to raise Leo and Mia full-time? Are you willing to change diapers and pack lunches without the nanny? Without the money? Without the audience?" Vanessa looked around the room. She saw the judgment in the eyes of the jury. She saw the cameras. She felt the trap snapping shut. I, Xiao Jing Hao, Ling, 2 hash is greater than I have certain standards. She stammered. I cannot live like her. She pointed a manicured finger at me. Henry slammed his hand on the railing. Answer the question. Do you want the children, or do you want the check that comes with them? The pressure was too much. The entitlement, the greed, the sheer frustration of having her perfect life threatened. It all boiled over. I earned it. Vanessa shrieked. She stood up, her face twisted into a mask of ugly, raw fury. Do you know how hard it is to deal with those brats? They are loud, they are messy, and they smell like cheap soap. I spent 2 years playing the doting mother so David could get that money. I am not going to lose my lifestyle because of some waitress. The silence that followed was absolute. It was the kind of silence that happens after a bomb goes off. Before the screaming starts, Vanessa stood there, panting, her chest heaving. Then, she seemed to realize what she had said. She looked at the gallery. The reporters were not typing anymore. They were staring at her with open mouths. David had his head in his hands. Inner monologue. There it is. The monster behind the filter. She did not just say it. She screamed it. She stripped herself naked in front of the world. And the terrifying thing is, she genuinely believes she is the victim. She thinks her effort to pretend to love my children is a billable hour that deserves payment. Henry Vance stepped back. He looked at the judge. No further questions. Your Honor. Vanessa sank back into her chair. She looked small now, small and vicious and utterly defeated. The courtroom erupted. The judge banged her gavel, the sound sharp and violent against the wood. Order. I will have order. But the damage was done. The story was already out. I could see the reporters whispering into their phones. Gold digger stepmom meltdown. Inheritance scandal. The real victim. David stood up. He looked at Vanessa with pure hatred. You stupid cow. He hissed, loud enough for the front row to hear. You just cost me $40 million. Vanessa recoiled, bursting into fresh, hysterical tears. I sat still. I did not smile. I did not cheer. I felt a profound, heavy sadness. These were the people who had held my children's fate in their hands. This greed, this toxicity, this absolute lack of love. This was what I had been fighting against. Henry walked back to the table and sat down. He looked tired. We got them. Liz, he murmured. I looked at him. Then I looked at the judge, who was glaring at David and Vanessa with an expression of cold fury. The public fallout had begun. Their reputation was dead. But as I looked at the chaos, at the flashbulbs, at the ruin of the Sterling name, I realized something. The world would move on to the next scandal tomorrow, but my children would have to live with the knowledge that their father viewed them as a transaction. The war was over, but the cleanup was just beginning. The gavel struck the wooden block. It was a sharp, final sound that seemed to slice the heavy air of the courtroom in two. Judge Thorne lowered her glasses and looked directly at David. Her expression was not one of anger, but of cold, judicial disappointment. The petition for full custody filed by Mr. Sterling is dismissed with prejudice, the judge announced. Her voice echoed in the silent room. Furthermore, based on the evidence of financial misconduct presented by the defense, I am ordering an immediate freeze on all assets belonging to David Sterling and Sterling Industries. The district attorney will be in touch regarding the allegations of embezzlement and perjury. David slumped in his chair. He did not protest. He did not look at his high-priced lawyer. He looked like a man who had been hollowed out from the inside. The arrogance, The posture, the carefully constructed facade of the powerful chief executive officer, it had all evaporated, leaving behind a terrified man in a suit that suddenly seemed too large for him. Two bailiffs moved forward. The metallic click of handcuffs being unhooked from a belt loop was audible in the stillness. I looked at Vanessa. She was standing up, but she was not looking at David with concern. She was looking at him with a mixture of horror and revulsion. She took a step back, clutching her designer purse against her chest as if it were a shield. "Vanessa," David croaked, reaching a hand toward her. "Call my father. Tell him, do not talk to me." Vanessa hissed. Her voice was low, but in the quiet courtroom, everyone heard it. "You said you had it handled. You said the money was secure. I can fix this," David pleaded, desperation cracking his voice. "You are going to jail, David." She spat out. Her face, usually so composed and camera-ready, was twisted into a mask of ugly self-preservation. "I am not going to be the wife of a felon. I am not going to lose everything because you are incompetent." She turned on her heel. She did not look at the children's empty seats. She did not look at me. She walked out of the courtroom, her heels clicking sharply against the linoleum, leaving her husband alone with the consequences of his greed. Inner monologue. So that is it. That is the great love story that was supposed to replace me. It took exactly 3 minutes of adversity for her to abandon him. I should feel happy. I should feel a sense of justice. But looking at David now, broken and abandoned, I do not feel triumph. I just feel a deep exhaustion. He traded his family for a mirage, and now he has nothing. Henry Vance closed his file folder. He did not smile. He did not gloat. He simply capped his pen and placed it in his breast pocket. "Let us go, Liz," he said quietly. "The show is over." I stood up. My legs felt shaky, like I had just stepped off a boat onto dry land. I walked past the plaintiff's table. David looked up at me. His eyes were red-rimmed and filled with a profound, terrifying regret. "Liz," he whispered. I did not stop. I did not acknowledge him. There was nothing left to say. The man I had once married, the father of my children, had died a long time ago. This stranger in handcuffs was just a ghost. We walked out of the heavy double doors and into the corridor. The reporters were there, a wall of flashing lights and shouted questions, but the bailiffs held them back. Henry led me out a side exit, into the cool, gray evening of the city. The noise of the traffic washed over us. It sounded normal. It sounded indifferent. The world had kept turning while my life hung in the balance. Henry stopped at the curb and lit a cigarette. His hand shook slightly. "You did good, kid," he said, exhaling a plume of smoke. I leaned against the brick wall of the courthouse. The adrenaline was fading, leaving a cold ache in my bones. "Is it really over?" I asked. "The legal part?" "Yes," Henry said. "He will not bother you again. He has bigger problems now. The feds do not play nice with embezzlement." I nodded. I looked at my hands. They were the same hands that had scrubbed floors and counted pennies. They were empty, but they were free. "Go get your kids," Henry said. "Go home." I walked to the bus stop. I sat on the plastic bench and watched the city lights flicker on. I felt a strange emptiness in my chest. For months, fear had been the fuel that kept me moving. Hate had been the fire that kept me warm. Now, there was just silence. Inner monologue. I won. I have my children. I have my dignity. But I do not feel like a winner. I feel like a survivor of a shipwreck. standing on the shore, watching the debris float away. The scars are there. The trust is gone. I will never be the naive girl I was before this started. David took my innocence. He took my peace. And he took my faith in people. The judge gave me custody. But she cannot give me back the person I was before the war. I closed my eyes and leaned my head back against the glass of the bus shelter. A single tear leaked out, hot and slow. It was not a tear of joy. It was a tear of release. The nightmare was finished. But as the bus approached, its headlights cutting through the gloom, I knew that the healing would take much longer than the trial. I had saved my children, but I had lost a piece of my soul in the process. 10 years is a long time. It is enough time for a sapling to become a shade tree. It is enough time for a mountain to erode just a fraction of an inch. And it is enough time for a terrified 25-year-old waitress to become the manager of her own small bistro on the corner of 4th and Main. I am 35 now. I have fine lines around my eyes that no cream will erase. My hands are rougher than they used to be, callous from years of chopping vegetables and scrubbing counters. I do not drive a luxury car. I drive a Honda that is 8 years old and makes a rattling noise when I turn left. I still rent an apartment, though it is a nicer one now, with 2 bathrooms and a balcony that gets the morning sun. It was a Tuesday night in November when the past finally came knocking. It was raining, a cold, sleeting rain that turned the Chicago streets into mirrors, reflecting the neon signs. I was closing up the bistro, wiping down the mahogany counter, when I saw a figure standing outside the glass door. He was hunched over, shivering in a coat that was too thin for the weather. His hair, once thick and perfectly styled, was thinning and gray. He looked like a ghost haunting the wrong graveyard. I unlocked the door. I did not invite him in. I just stood in the doorway, blocking the warmth of the restaurant from escaping into the night. "Hello, David," I said. He looked up. His eyes were watery, red-rimmed, and filled with a desperation that made my stomach turn. He did not look like the chief executive officer of Sterling Industries anymore. He looked like a man who had spent the last 8 years in federal prison and the last 2 years realizing that the world had moved on without him. "Elizabeth," he rasped. His voice was a shadow of the baritone that used to command boardrooms. "I, Saoyutsing Haoling. Tuhash is greater than I just wanted to see them. Just for a minute. Please." I looked at him. I looked at the man who had tried to destroy me because he wanted a photo for a dying old man. "They do not want to see you." "David," I said softly. He fell to his knees, right there on the wet pavement. He did not care about the mud soaking into his trousers. He clasped his hands together, the rain plastering his hair to his skull. "I have nothing. Liz," he sobbed. "Vanessa took the offshore accounts before the feds got there. My family disowned me. I am begging you. I am their father." Inner monologue. Look at him. The great David Sterling, kneeling in the slush, 10 years ago. This sight would have felt like victory. It would have felt like justice. But now, it just feels pathetic. Hate takes energy. Anger takes fuel. I have neither left for him. He is just a stranger with a familiar face. "Get up, David," I said. "You are embarrassing yourself. Please?" He moaned. "Just tell them I am sorry." I stepped back and started to close the heavy glass door. I told them that years ago. I said, "They forgave you, but they do not want to know you." I locked the door. I turned the sign to closed. I pulled the blinds down, shutting out the image of the man kneeling in the rain. I did not watch him walk away. I went to the back office, picked up my purse, and went home to my real life. Tonight is my birthday. The apartment smells of vanilla and melting wax. There is no yacht. There is no private chef. There is a lopsided chocolate cake sitting on the kitchen table, baked by a 16-year-old boy and a 14-year-old girl. Leo is taller than me now. He has his father's jawline, but my eyes. He is talking animatedly about his history project, waving a knife around as he prepares to cut the cake. Mia is laughing at him, her dark curls bouncing. She is wearing a sweatshirt I bought her at Target, and she looks beautiful. Make a wish. Mom, Mia says, lighting the candles with a match. I look at the flames dancing on the chocolate frosting. I look at my children. They are not perfect. They leave wet towels on the floor. They bicker. They roll their eyes when I ask them to clean their rooms. But they are here. They are safe, and they know exactly who they are. I remember the courtroom. I remember Vanessa screaming about her lifestyle. I remember the fear that tasted like metal in my mouth. Inner monologue. I used to think I lost 10 years of my life fighting that war. I used to mourn the youth I spent in lawyers, offices, and second jobs. But looking at them now, I realize I did not lose anything. I bought this. I paid for this moment with my sweat and my pride. And it was a bargain. I blow out the candles. The smoke curls up into the air, carrying the scent of burnt sugar. What did you wish for? Leo asks, cutting a slice of cake that is way too big. I smile at him, taking the plate. Nothing. I say, I have everything I need right here. We eat the cake. We laugh about a movie we watched last week. The rain taps against the window, soft and rhythmic. Somewhere out there, in the cold city, David is alone, somewhere in a different city. Vanessa is likely making someone else miserable, but in this kitchen, there is only warmth. The yacht would have been nice, I suppose. The money would have made things easier, but money is just paper. This specific, messy, loud, chocolate-smeared joy, this is the only inheritance that matters. 小于今好零，而今好大于。We live in a world that is obsessed with the performance of happiness. We scroll through photos of perfect families on yachts, perfect dinners on marble tables, and perfect smiles that hide broken teeth. We are taught to envy the shine and pity the struggle. But the story of Elizabeth and David is a reminder that the camera lens always lies. David had the fortune, the lineage, and the power. He believed that he was entitled to his children simply because he could afford to buy them the world. He lost because he never understood that you cannot own a human being, no matter how much you pay for the frame they stand in. Elizabeth had nothing but a spine of steel and a heart that refused to stop beating for her children. She won not because she destroyed him, but because she endured him. So, the next time you see a picture of a perfect family online, ask yourself a question. If you stripped away the filters, the money, and the noise, what would be left standing in the silence? Would it be love? Or would it be just a group of strangers waiting for the shutter to click?